you guys lay out the action. Like, the action's cool. Like, that's why we're here. Like, James Bond is it's a male fantasy, and it has this cool action, and he gets the babe and all that, right? Like, that's all well and good. But the fact that it succeeds, the man with the golden gun was, hey, here's this guy who's Bond's equal but opposite. And I love that shit. This is Bond's equal but opposite working for the Russians, who just so happens to be a sexy babe. That's cool, too. And then it just so happens that he murdered sexy babe's boyfriend. Yep. That's cool. Yeah. The romance is fun. Like, at first, they're working at odds. And then, like, slowly over time, they kind of team up. And then it's, in probably one of the better scenes of the movie where he reveals, she straight up is like, did you kill him? Did you kill my ex-boyfriend? And he says, yes, I did kill him. It's also one of the funniest cuts ever where she walks out of the room and they cut to them lowering onto the sub and Bond's like, hey. Like, yeah. I love that moment. Because Bond's so fucking shameless. He's like, look, babe, like, you know the world we live in. Like, I killed him, but like, you're banging me now. Forget about him. And she forgets about him in like 5 minutes. But like, that's where
that whole dynamic is awesome. But I did not like her. Am I the only one that didn't like her?
I'll say this about Barbara.
She's kind of a robot.
I went on a survival course in Siberia.
I like the character. I like the story.
The acting is
not the strongest. I agree with you there.
Bodily warmth. Like, she's a fucking robot. She's kind of a weirdo.
Her acting is very wooden.
But how would you imagine a Russian spy? They'd probably be pretty goddamn robotic.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good
program and beat into just being a physical presence and force.
To me, it gives off the vibes of they're just like, who's the hottest chick we can hire?
Yeah.
Her.
Which we know they do
She can't act that well. Well,
triple X.
We'll figure it out.
They're like, no one's going to be looking at her acting, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to be looking at her.
I'm like hitting play on your rant last time, McCurdy, about like your whole thing was you wanted more Scaramanga. Like, that whole Bond Scaramanga dynamic, you wanted more. And with this, I could have used more between them, and they are kind of like doing their thing the whole movie. Like, she's pretty present in the movie.
I don't completely disagree with you.
I do wish that they would have played it up a bit more. Like,
I could see that.
She's like pushing him away in the beginning, and then we have our goofy ass scene with Jaws, and then from there on they're kind of teamed up, and like she's like all about Bond at that point.
Yeah,
and they kind of jump into bed pretty quick. I mean, that's all well and good, but like.
Yeah.
But like then your whole thing about I killed him, like, it's two things for me. She very quickly jumps back on Team Bond, which one could argue like whatever, like her boyfriend's dead and clearly Bond is awesome, so like she's gonna jump to Bond. But like But and then at the same time though, there never really is a glorious moment for XXX. Like, there's never really a moment where you're like, fuck yeah, XXX. Like, she's no Black Widow, where she doesn't even have a moment where, like, okay, remember that montage I made of like chicks kicking ass in Bond? I couldn't find one. I mean, I have one moment where the guy throws off her hat and she punches him. Other than that, XXX really doesn't have any good moment. Like,
I really doesn't. I disagree.
Please tell me what it is.
It's not that she's not. Unlike Tracy, which I think Tracy's still better than this chick, but I do also like the whole story parts of this character. Yeah. But unlike Tracy, she doesn't get an action scene, but she does get to best Bond several times in this movie, where it's that fight between trying to get the microfilm. And the one time she definitely best him is when he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna now. This is gonna be great. And then he's like, here, can you light my cigarette? And then it turns out it's like gas cigarette.
I love that moment.
That is her moment. That's her one big moment in the movie where she best him for sure.
But he had already looked at the microfilm, so it didn't really matter. She does like trick him and knock him out. Yeah. But if we want XXX to like hold her own and be like a good opposite to Bond, she could have been more helpful in that. Like, she could have done something in that fight that would have been like, oh, they're working together. She's badass. Bond is badass.
But that's not what she's doing at that time. They're up against each other. Like, they're at odds with each other, which I think what helps the movie. Yeah. And I've always said that I think conflict is always king in any film or any story, right? You want to have conflict. You want to have two people going up against each other, because if you don't have that and everyone's on the same side, the film kind of falls flat. So what helps about this movie is, even though they are allies, there is that conflict there where up against each other, where they're fighting for the same goals, but they're on two different sides, and then it turns to like now they're allies. But that first quarter of the movie works really well because of that. And then now that you also have a formidable villain like Jaws, then you can kind of shift gears and you're like, okay, now we're up against.
I meant the fight on the train. Like right then would have been the perfect time for the shift, and that's when they do the shift.
Yeah.
But it's more like, you saved me, Bond. Now I love you. And I think it would have worked better if they were more equals in fighting. Obviously, Jaws is like crazy
she's
strong.
not going to be.
He just knocks her out, and she's out for the fight.
Had they had a little more double team action, it would have aided their coming together. Maybe like Bond is getting choked, and she's the one who fucking breaks the lamp and then stabs his teeth with the electricity. Like that would have been cool.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, she's just like laying in the other room. And then on top of that, what if they go to bang, or maybe after they bang and after they have sex and she has a cigarette or whatever, and Bond lights her cigarette with the burn garden, and he's like, oh, I got this in Austria or whatever, and then she puts two and two together.
Very nice.
Oh, it's Austrian. I bought it in Berngarten.
Vangarten.
Yes, I was doing some skiing.
When was this?
About 3 weeks ago. Why?
Do you think it would have helped had she realized that he had murdered her ex-lover sooner, so that could have been more of a dynamic between them for a longer portion of the film rather than right at the end? Like right at the, it's like she finds that out right before they try to board the Laparis or whatever, and it doesn't really weigh in on the movie that heavily. Like it really doesn't. It's like she finds out about it, and then the next time they see each other, it's their cute little scene in the escape pod.
Another movie ending in sex on a boat thing.
Sex on a boat is
this
back.
one's fully stocked. There's like a full-on sex
of the
bed.
10 movies, maybe 2 haven't ended that way.
Yeah,
that's true.
Oh my god,
that's
Except
great.
this one has Perignon 52 or whatever the